Tonight, what we're going to look at here is a Drake. Well, it's a Drake RR-2, but it's actually branded ITT Mackay Marine 3023A. It's a militarized version built on a contract with U.S. Navy, I believe, by R.L. Drake out of Reynoldsburg, Ohio. And it was built. This one was built in 1979. I know that because it's got the acceptance tag on the back. The inspection tag is still, half of it's still on there. It has the date on there. So that's the time frame we're talking about here. It's a good basic receiver, and is meant to go as a secondary receiver in ships, and therefore the maritime label on it, or marine label on it. And just go over some of the controls and tell you how it kind of works a little bit. Obviously, you see the two windows up there. You have an RF meter, which is basically, it just basically shows you the signal you have coming in. You have another window which has two different meters in it. You tune this in bits. In other words, you go with the frequency would tune the rough range. Like this is at 0.5 megahertz, that's 500 kilohertz. The station I'm currently tuned to is Zoomer Radio out of Toronto, Canada, and that's AM 740. So you have 500, and then you'd add, you basically have 200 to it, and then you add 40 to that. So that's kind of how those two different wheels, and they move sort of independently to tune it. And then finally you come over here and you would range peak it, basically just maximize the signal. If you, with this, you'd see how the needle deflects. You want to get the maximum deflection there. You can also do that by sound, by ear. It's just how it sounds best. Other display controls on here. This one here is the basically pre-selector, which basically allows you to get the right frequency range. In this case, we've got on the 0.5 or 500 kilohertz filter, which match this. If we're going to go to higher, I would switch this to whatever. I would switch that to whichever range I go to. Those are in or megahertz there. Speaker, and you have the gain. There are two different gains here. This is the RF gain, little thing there, and then this is the audio gain, which is basically your volume.
What happens next week, Mr. Obler? Well, we were talking about it.
Okay. And you have your modes, AM, CW, which is Morse code, and single sideband, upper and lower sideband. The filter selection on this is fairly, well, it's utilitarian, but it works. You have in CW, you have a CW narrow is a 400 hertz filter. That's a 0.4, they say. And there's a CW broad, they call it, a CW wide, which is the same filter as the LSB and USB, which is a 2.4 kilohertz filter, which is comfortable and works pretty well. And then the AM filter, I've seen different views on this. The machine's telling me one thing, my ear's telling me one thing, but then I see specs and things like Osterman's Guide at 4.8. The Network Sciences filter that's built into this says it's slick 6/4, and the sound to me sounds a little broader than a 4.8, so it may be 6 or close to it. It's all kind of approximate, but with the audio sound on this, it's...
Stay tuned for Ziggy next on Zoomer Radio. I'm Frank Proctor.
So you hear how good the audio is, and it's just
Zoomer Radio Toronto.
that 3x5 speaker is just absolutely phenomenal. It's an oval speaker.
Owned and operated by NZ Media Incorporated.
But anyway, you have the main tuning dial here, which I just showed you a little bit there, where you can actually, that's most of the intermediate tuning is done there, and then you basically peak it with here. But that's to set the range, do that, do the frequency range, then you do this, then you do that. Way different than just tuning a knob today and just whirling around the bands. But this is when you like, if you're a knob twirler, you like this one. Down here you have the notch filter, which is not just a notch filter. It's actually has multiple selections here. There is a radio filter or radio teletype filter for digital modes, which would be somewhere in between the 2.4 and the 0.4 bandwidth filters. That is not installed in this machine. You have a noise blinker, which is pretty effective. In AM mode, it doesn't do very well, but if you're on single sideband or CW, it's very effective. I mean, you can null out signals for anything. That is installed here, and you select that by just doing that, and then you turn it on, and it goes through and does that. So power. You got power regulation down here. You have this is the on-off switch. It can run off AC power, which this is the fuse for that, or battery power. I think it's a 12 or 1.5 amp fuses in there, so it's probably 12 volt. But those are the fuses for there, so for the DC for that one, and this was for the things. AGC is on off. That's what you got. It's just a toggle switch between the two. Attenuator is pretty effective. So it basically shuts down 20 dB the signal. So you can still hear it, but it's very weak. That helps if you're got strong signals. If you've got strong signals coming in from an adjacent broadcast or something when close, you're trying to reduce the amount of signal going into the radio. That's the way you would do that. And then the speaker on-off switch, and that works very, very effectively. So, but anyway, this is, I just wanted to show you this and kind of give you an idea what an ITT Mackay Marine 3023A receiver looks like. Some of their operation controls on it. It's basically a repackaged Drake RR-2. Only difference that I can tell on this is the front panel is a different color with the RR-2, as well as there are silver inlays and all the control knobs, control pods on it. Anyway, so that's just a little cosmetic difference. And beyond all of that, even before that, you have the RR-2 is actually a kind of hardened version of the Drake SPR4 receiver from the same time, which was the amateur market. So you see, just like we saw in my Kenwood and the Furuno ad video I made, Drake is better known for doing those kind of things, at least in the United States. And this is actually one that they packaged an earlier version and a later version of RR-2, and then they also made it into a rebranded in the defense market, an ITT Mackay Marine. So anyway, just thought you'd be interested in that. Any comments, let me know in the comment section. We'll see you next time.